I'm wearing a crop top t-shirt and bike shorts because it's 89 degrees in my bedroom. I'm so hot.
Yes, you are.
Shut up. Oh, boy.
Let's dive into the intro.
Yes. Hey, everyone. Welcome to Creepy InQueeries,
A podcast dedicated to all things creepy, spoopy, and true crimey.
with your hosts, Miss
And Kevin.
Your friendly neighborhood queers.
Oh.
Let's
dive
So how was your weekend? Or your week, I should say.
Yeah, my week has been good so far. Ben and I are knee deep in planning our wedding.
Uh-huh.
We met up with our wedding planner, and that was good. She keeps telling us that we are ahead of the curve, so that means good things.
Nice. Yeah, that's great. It's very good.
Yeah, so it's been great. It's also stressful as all hell.
Of course.
But ultimately, it's very fun, and I'm very much looking forward to it. Oh, yes. Oh, yes. You're going to be there, right?
You know, I'm thinking about it.
I know,
I don't know where
you
I'm
said
gonna
pending
be.
on the RSVP,
I don't know,
and
I don't know
how to
I'm
work with that.
Well, why don't we change it to like a tentative maybe?
I will be glad to RSVP as pending.
Pending. Yes, I RSVP'd to my best friend's wedding as a maybe.
I'll think about it.
Yes, I will, of course, be there. I tried to think about what I was going to wear, and then I just couldn't handle the idea of making that kind of decision. So I was like, we'll handle this in March.
Oh, yes. Oh, God, yes. Yeah, so that's been my week. It's literally been wedding heavy, and I've been happy with that. How's your week been, babe?
Uneventful. Work has been good.
Yeah,
I would say. Yes, work has been pretty good. I am studying. I know. I don't need to hear about it. I'm doing okay.
No, at this point, I feel like people might be concerned if you said you weren't studying,
No, that's fair.
Yeah.
That's fair. No, definitely studying, meeting those expectations. And working on the show.
Yes.
It's been a pretty busy week. It's going to be, the next few weeks are going to be really interesting.
Are going to be super interesting.
Yeah.
We're both not entirely sure how the rest of February is going to go. So stay tuned, y'all. It's in for a bumpy ride.
You know, I appreciate your patience in advance.
Yes.
I'm not anticipating anything happening, but I don't know. If you've ever studied for like a board exam or anything like that, you can understand it's a challenging time.
Yes, and also for Miss to be taking the 2.5 hours on a Sunday for us to record an episode, that alone is carving out time where it shouldn't be carved out. She's doing this for y'all, for you all.
Yeah, no, this keeps me going. This is my motivator and incentivizer. This and cats.
That and cats, yes. Well, you do it flawlessly. I love that you do it, and I love that we do it.
I love it too.
We're amazing, and everyone's finding out about us.
I can't stop talking about how great I am, personally, outside of my relationship with you. But yeah, everything's going pretty well, you know? I am in a much better spot than I was the first time I took it, so can't complain.
Snaps for miss. And this is our 12th episode, and that means it's been 3 consecutive months of us doing this, churning out stuff.
It doesn't seem that long.
It truly doesn't.
Yeah.
To me, and it truly keeps getting funner and funner.
Oh, for sure. Definitely. It's the highlight of my everything. Well, It's the highlight of my weekend to record with you.
Yes, me too.
Well, okay, second highlight. Biggest highlight, sleeping. It's my favorite.
Fair.
Sleeping. But second is this. And it just is like everything I didn't know I needed. Like, my job does such a good job now of engaging my brain in a way that is annoying, but I need for sanity reasons. And then this engages my brain for fun reasons. And I guess my only two things I like to do for work or for fun is research.
Me too.
And book reports.
And the last 2 episodes have been such a phenomenal response from everyone.
We've got some new listeners. We have to.
And so, like, thank you guys and gals and theys that are out there. Yeah. Thank you so much for listening. Y'all. And we truly hope you love what we're putting out. And if you have any suggestions on how to improve the show or what you people want to hear, please let us know. You know, reach out to us. We are open-eared.
Yeah, love suggestions.
We love
especially
suggestions
when my brain doesn't work.
Yes, we also love ratings. Go ahead and give us a 5-star rating or subscribe. We would love that. Yeah. That helps, truly.
Definitely.
Just know for sure we have some amazing content lined up for the next few months. I've already planned out stories that I'm doing for the next few weeks. I'm so happy.
I haven't planned anything because I can't.
Exactly.
But listen, I'll tell you what. Come March,
yes,
I'll have a portfolio put together for you. I'll have a portfolio.
Vroom vroom. She's gonna be on the loose. I'm very excited for today's episode.
Are you?
Yes, because I feel like you will have a great time.
Okay. Well, now I'm very excited. I mean, not that I wasn't before. I mean, I would have a great time no matter what.
I know. That's I didn't mean to say it that way. What I meant to say was...
Yeah, like, do you think I'm having a horrible time over here?
No, what I meant to say was I know that you will have a lot to talk about with this episode.
Will I? Well,
yes.
You know I love to hear the sound of my own voice. Just kidding.
So today's episode, I am so excited for.
Are you? Please tell me everything.
I'm not even going to ask you if you know the story or not, because you fucking do.
Okay.
Yeah. So we are going to take a journey today. And listeners, do not judge me or miss if our voices kind of go into any kind of Baltimore accent because...
Oh, no.
You know, because this story that I'm going to tell you today is straight from our hometown.
What is it? Oh,
yeah. Oh, today, my child, we're going to be talking about Baltimore's own spree killer murder. Hold on.
You got it. You did it really good.
Thank you. We're going to be talking about Baltimore's own spree killer, manhunt enthusiast, and hostage seizure, Joe Palzinski.
Yes! I'm so excited!
Yes, bitch.
Yes. 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 Okay.
Uh-huh.
One of our early forays into true crime.
Hell yes. We were not in the thick of it, but we fucking lived during it. And I vividly...
It was literally 15 minutes away from where we lived.
Absolutely. I mean, my dad lived there at the time.
That's right.
And we were all very much enthralled and terrified for those,
oh my God,
2 weeks?
Yeah. It was very, very scary.
Oh God, yes. And so we're going to talk about that. I can't wait to hear about how you experienced that. And as I was researching this story,
yes,
I don't know if you've read anything more about the story itself and what we've all, as a city, knew about him and the story itself with the manhunt, with the hostage situation, because so many things that of his past are equally horrific. He was a monster.
Was he? I did not know that.
I didn't either.
I mean, I knew he had this, and to be fair, we were... How old were we?
I was 11. Like, I think you were 11 too, because it was March of 2000.
Yeah, so we were turning 12. Yeah, we were turning 12 that year. So it was peripheral, but I was very into it, but not until I was older, if I'm going to be honest, because I remember in high school, once we got the Google.
Yes.
I remember looking it up for something. Jujule it. I remember looking it up for whatever reason. And then a few years ago, I think a podcast like mentioned it. So I like looked it up briefly, but no, I don't really know much about it.
That's always great for these kinds of episodes. I have a lot of information.
I'm so excited.
So before I go into the story, listeners, if you have never heard of him, he held Baltimore captive for 2 weeks. Hostage. He actually kept people hostage, but he also kept our city hostage because he ended up murdering 4 people. He kidnapped his estranged girlfriend. And when she escaped from him, he then went on the lam. He went rogue and no one could find him. The FBI was not able to locate him. Baltimore police were not able to locate him. So it was a manhunt that lasted days. I'm talking almost 2 weeks that he was unaccounted for. So as 11-year-olds and as a young dramatic queerling that I was, Miss and I did not know each other when we were 11. No. So we went to different schools.
2 more years.
But I vividly remember looking out the window in my 6th grade classroom, looking out into the woods, you know, trying to look for him because that's what people kept saying. Like he was running around. You had to be, like, you know, eagle-eyed.
Backyards.
Yes.
Yeah, that's what I remember.
And no place was safe. City, suburbs, woods. He could have been anywhere.
Yeah. I remember the news saying when the manhunt was happening, like he'd been spotted in this person's backyard or this person's garden or stealing from this place. Like I remember that's what I remember. And that's why it was so scary. I mean, we were babies. We were babies. School. So like we were just like, so I kind of, part of me thought it was very cool because like, we
were on the news.
We were on the news. Yeah, basically. And it was kind of exciting. And then I remember like people being like very scared.
Oh, hell yes.
Very concerned.
Like, shops would close down early. People would walk around with bats.
Yeah, everybody was home before dark.
Yes. It was terrifying and exciting in equal measure because nothing like this had happened, especially in our lifetime, but I don't know about before that. And so it was a wild, wild time and it really imprints on you. And again, I remember being so dramatic. Miss can attest to this. She is my external hard drive. I don't have a great memory of my childhood. No. There are certain things that I do remember vividly. And one of those is I remember sitting in my 6th grade classroom writing out a will in case Joe Palzinski got me. Who the fuck knew what I was going to be bequeathing? But here we are. My Britney Spears CD, I give to my friend Brooke. My drawings of Cher that I made with my Crayola markers, I give to my mother.
God, they were so good. Oh God, my favorite.
Do you believe?
Yes. The best thing your mother ever did was show me those.
Oh, God.
Show me those beautiful pictures of baby Kevin drawing Cher as a very young child.
Very young.
Your mother didn't know.
My mother had no clue that I was gay. All right. Yeah,
sorry, I'm getting caught up in middle school memories.
I know, right? We were walking down memory lane, and I think everyone listening is actually getting a kick out of it.
I don't think I was doing any of that. I think I was like just looking around because... 11-year-old Miss. She didn't really have a lot of defenses. She did not have a lot of defenses. I'll tell you that.
11-year-old Kevin couldn't do anything. His defense was what? He could do the "Oops, I Did It Again" dance.
You very much could, but you did karate.
I sure did.
Karate. You could have karate'd him. You were like a big deal black belt.
I could have taken him. Yeah. We are going to dive into this story because there is so much that happened before all of that.
Okay. And that I'm very interested. I thought he was just like a dude who just like cracked, just like went off the deep end.
Oh, if only. So here we go, babe. Strap in.
Strap in and strap on.
In his last days, Joseph Palzinski, the 31-year-old Baltimore man, followed through on a persistent threat to harm the family of any girlfriend who dared leave him and kill anyone who got in his way.
I had no idea he was 31. I am picturing haggard East Baltimore, like late 40s.
And doing this research, I ended up going on YouTube, and they have 3-hour-long videos of the coverage that WJZ did.
Yes, and I've watched that. That's what I watched a few years ago. It was very surreal.
It was surreal.
Surreal.
But yes. Mm-hmm. In March 2000, those plans were enacted, in which 4 lives were taken, including someone that was pregnant. For 2 weeks, it held the citizens of Baltimore spellbound in horror. Countless crimes were committed between Maryland and Virginia until it ended with a violent 4-day hostage situation in Baltimore's Dundalk neighborhood, one of the longest standoffs of its kind in the U.S., even to this day.
Really?
Yeah.
I don't think I realized it was 4 days long. I know about the end, the hostage situation. That's mainly what I know about. And I did not realize that it was 4 days long.
I think technically 97 hours, which is a little less than 4 days.
I do know that the end of the hostage situation, I have a lot of opinions about, so let's get to it.
Yes, ma'am. I do too.
I have a lot of opinions.
We are still going to talk about it. So before I begin, if you or someone you know is in need of help with domestic violence, please reach out to your local shelter or visit www.hotline.org or dial 1-800-799-SAFE. And the good thing about hotline.org is if you click on backspace twice, it will automatically redirect to a Google search site in case anyone's looking behind your back.
Oh, that's wonderful. That's crazy. That is so nice. Sorry, I just went through a whole gamut of emotions, but there's a lot of scary situations that can come up when someone is trying to reach out for help. So that's an incredibly useful tool.
And again, wonderful. It's www.hotline.org. So while most who've heard of the name Joe Palzinski, like myself and like Miss, know of the murders, the manhunt, and the hostage situation, his backstory is equally horrific. When those events took place, Miss and I were in middle school. We were just talking about how I vividly remember making a will to leave things in case Joe Palzinski got me. If I got got.
Tiny baby Kevin got got.
Yes.
I guarantee you I was not thinking about that.
No.
I don't even think I knew what a will was when I was 11. I'm going to be honest, because I tend to underreact. I come from a line of underreactors.
Yes. So let's start with the backstory of Joe Palzinski, who, by the way, his nickname was Joby. All of his friends and girlfriends who knew him was Joby. He was known as a ladies' man. He had GQ looks. He had a buff body. He drove expensive cars, sports cars.
Oh, yeah.
He was a bad boy, that kind of type that would attract women, particularly younger ones, unfortunately.
Gross.
Yeah.
I'm looking him up now because Heartthrob, I do not remember him being.
I mean, in some of those pictures, he could get it.
I can see it.
Yeah. He had sandy brown hair. He had hazel eyes, endlessly polite. You know, he'd buy you flowers and gifts and take you horseback riding and arrange picnic lunches in the park. You know, he's been locked up before, but you really tune it out when he blames the other girls for getting him in trouble. You know you're nothing like them. Joby liked people to be afraid of him. He actually thrived on it. Palzinski's male friends were almost always younger than he was, which is, you know, a telltale sign of a power dynamic.
Definitely.
He wanted to always be in control and feel superior to anybody. Those young friends were always easily impressed by those cars and the weapons that he had. And in that circle, toughness equaled status, and guns added to that equation. It was the same dynamic that he used with the teenagers he dated.
Gross.
Out of all of his dastardly actions against his female victims, Palzinski only went to jail twice. But when he was released, there was always another girlfriend, or, you know, better yet, another victim. With each soured relationship and each trip to court, Joby grew more afraid of returning to jail, became more paranoid about it. He would do whatever it took to force his victims to drop their charges.
That's great.
I know. At one point, he even masterminded a campaign of intimidation from inside Baltimore County Detention Center, which we're going to talk about in a little bit. Yeah. And for Joby, March of 2000 was a vicious turning point. And that's when Tracy Whitehead had him arrested for beating her. And another assault.
She?
I know. How the fuck dare she? And he knew that another assault conviction was going to violate his probation and send him to jail for probably 10 years. At that point, Joby felt like he had nothing to lose.
I mean,
but in his mind,
there's still a lot. I mean, he was young.
Yes,
10 years is a very long time to be in jail, but you're still only going to be 40.
Yep. Let's go ahead. Before we talk about the story that Miss and I are very familiar with, let's take it back. And we're going to take it back to the late 80s.
Let's.
1987, in fact. Shoulder pads, crimped hair. Rick Astley's Never Gonna Give You Up, and Whitney's I Want to Dance with Somebody were the hits. Over the span of 13 years, Joe Palzinski had lured at least 7 young, and I mean young women into fantasy relationships. Gross. And one by one, each discovered the truth about Joby's dangerously controlling personality. And I'm going to talk about some of those relationships now. In 1987, Amy was 16 when they met while attending Perry Hall High School.
No.
Face crack. Melissa shook right now. He went to Perry Hall High School.
Of course he did. You've been waiting.
I was so ready to. I could not wait. Yes.
I literally had no idea.
Perry Hall High School is where we attended high school, y'all. Yes.
We attended high school. Go Gators.
Go Gators, yes. So I think 87, actually. He was a senior.
Okay. That's hilarious.
Hilarious. Side note, the same year and location where many scenes of John Waters' Hairspray was filmed. That same year. The summer of 1987.
And here I thought we had really nothing going for us. I mean, I knew about the Hairspray thing. That's very cool.
John Waters filmed the original Hairspray. All the school scenes were at Perry Hall High School, where we went to school.
That's right.
The 5-month relationship and courtship between Amy and Joe Palzinski and Joby was far from ideal. He told her he had 2 personalities. Joby number 1 was calm and rational, and Joby number 2 was angry and strange.
I wasn't expecting strange.
I'm not either. I was reading that and I was like, I'm keeping that in. I'm going to quote that.
That's a really, I was not expecting strange.
So with Amy, she was 16. He was 19 at the time. Fine. Their relationship ended in the summer when she went on a family vacation to Ocean City, Maryland.
Nice.
And he drove out there. He came across her sitting, eating ice cream on the boardwalk. He ran over and beat her, punched her, brought her to the ground. The police ended up being called onto the boardwalk, and he somehow was able to talk the police out of doing anything.
Yeah, it was 1987.
1987.
It was Ocean City.
So after that, he forced her and Amy's brother out to the beach. It was at nighttime. So he made them walk out to the beach.
I guess it was just her and her brother, so I can't really say anything.
Yeah, I believe her parents were not present for that, yes. But it was not a fun experience for Amy or her brother.
No.
He forced them out to the beach. I believe he had a gun at the time, or at least a knife. And he threatened to kill her if her brother didn't punch her. And her brother refused. And so what Joe Palzinski did is he took her brother's hands and fists and physically beat her with him.
What the fuck is happening? So she broke up with him. Her family goes on vacation, and then he stalks her.
Yes.
And then beats her with her brother's hands?
Beats her bloody. Yes. This was on vacation. When he was done with the beating, it was like something kind of flipped in him, and he ended up crying and apologizing to her.
That happens so often.
So often.
They're just like rage, and then they're just like, oh no, what did I do?
So he let her go, and when she got treated at the medical shacks that that they have along the coastal highway, she and her family ended up pressing charges.
Thank God.
Of course, yes.
Yeah.
While those charges were pending, the next year, 1988, he meets another girl named Kimberly, and she was 16 when he blackened her eye and knocked her down to her knees and threatened her with a razor blade because he found Kim's birth control pills. And apparently he just didn't like that she was taking them.
Power. That's all.
And he was He was 20 years old at the time.
Yeah, no, that's in abusive relationships. That's very common for the abuser to be upset by something like that. Especially, I mean, because a baby is a great way to force a woman to stay with you.
Yes.
So why would he take that? I mean, listen, I don't know if that's true. I'm not a psychology expert, but I will say, in my experience, that type of behavior, it's just pure control and power. That's all
exactly.
it is.
And Kim ended up reaching out to Amy, his first victim, for solace and also asking for help on how to escape him.
I think you have to file a lawsuit. Sounds like.
Kim, too, ended up pressing charges.
Good.
Yeah. In 1988, Palzinski was convicted of beating up Kim, the second victim, and he was sentenced to 2 years of supervised probation.
Yeah. It was a first offense, I guess.
Perhaps, yeah, it was an earlier charge. And then following that, in January of 1989, very shortly after, as he was facing Amy's charges, he pled not guilty by reason of insanity. And a psychiatrist found him competent to stand trial. Yeah. And he was actually later sentenced to 4 years in prison, but he would only serve 2 years of that sentence.
Yeah, no, insanity under the law is not what most people think it is. Almost.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but it is sheerly whether or not the person at the time of the crime understands the difference between right and wrong.
That is the McNaughton standard. Generally speaking, that's exactly what it is. Each state sort of has their own definition of what, quote unquote, insanity under the law is. But that is generally speaking. It's generally the defect or disease of the mind that prevents you from understanding what you're doing is wrong. It's either you don't know the act that you're taking, or it's like you are hallucinating that you are in a different scenario. So when you're like raising you're raising a weapon to strike somebody, maybe you're hallucinating that this is a dragon and you're slaying a dragon, but it's actually your mother-in-law.
Right. Yeah. Again, he was sentenced to 4 years in prison. He had served 2 years when he was released. And in 1991, which is where we're at now, his next victim, named Sharon, was 17 years old when he attacked her at her school by assaulting her in the school's lobby, pushing her and shoving her against the brick wall, and I believe punching her, threatening to blow her brains out. And he was 21 at the time.
Okay, was there any, if it was in the lobby, was there, I don't know.
The assistant principal did
people
come
nearby?
Yes, the assistant principal did come by and I believe, forced him off the grounds and obviously told him he is not allowed to be on the grounds for any reason.
Well, he's a 21-year-old man without a child, so there's no reason he should be in a school whatsoever. Ever.
Yes. Yeah. Sharon, after that, filed charges over that abuse, and Palzinski began harassing her and her family to intimidate them into dropping their charges. Ended up not working. Oh, good. He failed at that, and they ended up tacking on more charges because of all those threatening phone calls that he would make and this kind of stalking.
That's an additional crime.
Yes, it is. So in November of 1991, Palzinski was arrested again and held at the Baltimore County Detention Center, but in a week or so, he was sent to a hospital for a psychiatric evaluation.
Well, it sounds like something's definitely going on.
Something's definitely going on. He ended up escaping that facility, and he ended up using his friend's ID to get out, and he ended up fleeing to Idaho. So he spent some time in Idaho, And in early 1992, police were alerted by a 15-year-old girl from Gooding, Idaho, who was assaulted by a man who fit Palzinski's description. Again, he was 22 at the time, and she was 15.
That's disgusting.
When the mother of the teen filed... No. When the mother of that 15-year-old teen filed charges, he became so paranoid about returning to jail because now it was a federal issue.
Well, yeah. You cross state lines, buddy. And listen, especially back here, they in the early 90s, it was very much shoot first.
Yes. On the morning of January 17th, 1992, that Maryland fugitive that we know as Joe Palzinski barricaded himself in an apartment in Idaho and told police he would kill himself and shoot any person in a nearby parking lot if the police advanced on him. After nearly 16 hours, a SWAT team hit the apartment with tear gas. Palzinski was apprehended and eventually extradited back to Maryland. What did you just drop?
I don't know. It's something metallic. What?
Yes, ma'am. Foreshadowing.
It wasn't even the first time.
It was not even the first time. I guess he wanted to break his record. I don't know.
I can't
but this
believe
was not a hostage situation. Yes.
No, fine. But I can't. Sorry, buddy. I upset my cat. I can't get over it.
I know.
And
this
I'm
shit
screaming.
Floored me when I read about all this. I was like, holy shit. Holy fuckballs.
Serious? I had no idea about this guy.
Oh, yeah. Strap in, baby. Strap in.
I honestly had a little bit of sympathy for him. I thought maybe he just went off the deep end and just had a mental break and then just went on a crazy spree.
No, ma'am, Pam.
Sympathy has been erased.
Eliminated. So with his extradition back to Maryland, and for those crimes, he was sent to Federal Correctional Institution in Petersburg, Virginia, and spent the next 3 years navigating, or some would say exploiting, the federal mental health system in hopes of being deemed, quote, insane. That was his goal. That's lofty. Friends close to him would later say that Palzinski told them how easy it was to manipulate judges and doctors. Yeah. In the course of his evaluations, Palzinski told a federal psychologist that he had illegally purchased a gun at a pawn shop to kill, quote, the ninjas who were trying to kill him. When he cut his wrists twice, once deeply enough to require stitches, he told a psychologist a voice told him to do it.
Oh. So he was just taking I heard this in that movie.
Which is why the psychologist deemed him to be diagnosed with schizophrenia, paranoid type, which met the criteria of legal insanity, which was a decision that led to him being found not guilty on federal weapons charges.
I will say it's a lot easier to do back then, but
yeah,
good for him.
Good for you. You played the game and you won.
Yeah, good for you. Sorry.
15 months of court-ordered treatments at a number of government facilities. Palzinski appeared to have made a complete recovery and was deemed extremely stable by federal psychologists.
I wonder what his diagnosis actually would be.
It ran the gamut. He was diagnosed throughout his time as being bipolar, as schizophrenic, as having a personality disorder, as being nothing of those, to being just a misogynist and a fucking power-hungry asshole.
If I could just put my armchair psychologist degree.
Yes.
I am just genuinely interested, what his actual diagnosis would be. But
me too. Well, we will never know. He ended up leaving the facilities with a clean bill of health.
Good for him.
Luckily for him, he no longer faced prosecution for the 1991 beating of 17-year-old Sharon because his lawyer argued successfully that his right to a speedy trial had been denied. Come 1995, his next victim, Michaela, was 17 when he choked her and slammed her against the shower tiles on Christmas Day. He was 25, but he told her that he was 20.
Oh, so also when you're examining whether or not someone is insane, you also look to whether or not they do anything to cover up their actions or their crime, because under the law, whether or not it's true, under the law, that shows
that denotes that you understand. Yes.
The gravity of what you're doing, at least to the extent that you would cover it up.
Right.
For what it's worth.
And according to Michaela's affidavit, when she pressed charges after that beating on Christmas Day, it was like a light switch. Apparently, 1 minute he was forcing her against the bathroom tiles, and she ended up bleeding on a white shirt that he got her, and he made her clean the blood out in minutes, or else he was going to beat her bloody again.
I hate this motherfucker. I hate him.
The next minute he was cooking dinner. He made steak and corn on the cob and mashed potatoes, and he lit candles for the dinner.
Oh, that's just classic abuse cycle bullshit.
Yeah.
He did something, he felt bad about it, so he lavished her with gifts or, something nice.
Michaela's father got into a fight with Palzinski when he noticed the bruises on his daughter. The scuffle sent the father to the hospital with 4 broken ribs and a split lip that required stitches.
Jesus Christ.
Michaela ended up pressing charges for those Christmas Day beatings she endured, and Palzinski was again arrested and, while in jail, began an intimidation campaign on Michaela and her father. He had his male friends drive around her neighborhood and park outside her house and place of work to look at her.
How old was she?
17.
Jesus.
Her father's car was vandalized. It was scratched up. Someone had poured sugar into the gas tank. Palzinski made 2 teenage females that he had courted, I guess, lie.
Okay.
He had those 2 females write a false affidavit lying to authorities claiming that Michaela's father had threatened them. And he told those girls that if they wouldn't do it, he would kill their family and them. So they better get on it. One of the girls ended up falsifying a document and mailed it to him while he was in jail to try and get him off her back. And he saw through that immediately, called her right back up. And he's like, do you think this is some kind of fucking game? I told you to go and do this. Do this right now. And she did. That's when she went and filed that police report saying that Michaela's father was threatening and intimidating her.
Yeah. I mean, what else was she supposed to do?
Right. He desperately wanted Michaela's charges to get dropped against him because he didn't want to go back to prison. And Michaela's father, because of those trumped up charges that those girls put,
dropped everything?
Yeah, he was arrested upwards of 3 times because of those false allegations. Even to the point where they were, I believe him and Joe Palzinski were in the same jail at the time. And the father had to have a label put on him saying, this prisoner needs to be kept away from Joe Palzinski. Yeah. And ultimately, though, one of those girls recanted, and they ended up taping a conversation that she had with the other accomplice about why they lied, why they did it, and a judge ultimately dismissed those charges against Michaela's father.
Not before the damage was done, though.
Right. Lawyers' fees, job loss, all of that shit. Yes.
Reputation.
Yeah. So unsuccessful in getting Michaela's charges dropped against him, Joby ended up pleading guilty to charges of battery and witness intimidation. Good. He received suspended sentences from Judge John G. Turnbull, and the court put him on probation and simply ordered him to stay away from Michaela and her family when he was released on probation. We are now up to 1996. Stacy, his new victim, had just turned 17 when Joe grabbed her by the neck, shoved her against a wall, and threatened to throw her off a balcony. He was 26 at the time, but again, he told his latest victim that he was 20. In November, Stacy and her parents, they got lucky. Joby ended up going to jail because his convictions in Michaela's case ended up violating the terms of his probation from his 1991 hospital escape charges. So a judge sentenced him to serve 3 years in a facility on the eastern shore of Maryland, which is a 3-hour drive away from Baltimore.
Yes, it is.
The judge in that trial was quoted as saying, "This man is dangerous. He's out there hurting people. I can't believe any human being can make so many mistakes and be given so many chances and not appreciate it."
Finally, somebody can see that.
And I do not feel, from what I've heard, that the mental state is anywhere near as much of an excuse as he tries to use it to be. Probably true. So he was sent off to jail.
Who knows?
Yeah, he was sent off to jail. Finally, in 1998, after his release from prison, he met Tracy Whitehead, the last of his girlfriends. She was 20 at the time, so, old. Yes.
Old.
He met her while she was working at a grocery store, and he started showing up there constantly, trying to woo her. It'd be 2 years later from when they met, when he murdered the couple sheltering her and then kidnapped and terrorized her. He'd be 31 at that time. So he met her when he was 29 years old. And of course, this is the story that Miss I and most Baltimoreans are familiar with.
Right. This is the only part of the story I've ever heard.
All of that other shit happened long before we knew Joe Palzinski. So those tragic events with Tracy Whitehead and the story that Baltimore knows.
God, we're just getting there.
I had no
What a total fucking monster he was.
He sure was. He sure as fuck
Baltimore,
was.
you done it again.
Done it again. So here we are, Saturday, March 4th, the year 2000, and Palzinski was arrested on assault charges for beating up Tracy Whitehead when she tried to move out of their apartment together. She was ready to break off the relationship. Yeah. She found an apartment, but it wasn't going to be ready for a couple days. So she decided to leave early anyway. The following day, after he was arrested, Palzinski is released on $7,500 bond, regardless of his rap sheet of domestic violence.
Well, I mean, this is where it gets tricky, Kevin.
It is.
Because, how do you reconcile, your
pretrial
belief,
confinement? Yes.
Yeah, your belief that pretrial confinement, can be argued to be unconstitutional, considering our guilty until proven guilty, innocent until proven guilty standard in our country. And, like we've discussed before, there are other measures to take besides incarceration.
Yep.
There are definitely other measures to take. Unfortunately, there weren't any at this time. It was all or nothing, but I don't know. That sucks.
So he was released on $7,500 bond. The next day, which is a Monday, March 5th, Palzinski had a neighbor of his whose name was Constance Waugh, Waugh. Constance ended up buying him a shotgun and a rifle, telling her, and she knew full well that he was a convicted felon because he told her, I cannot buy firearms because of my criminal background. Can you buy these for me? And she went
like, hell yeah.
Yeah, she went out to White Marsh, which is another
White Marsh,
which is another suburb that we know quite well, and went to two separate stores. One, she bought a shotgun, and the other, she bought a rifle. Those were falsified records because you have to sign documents saying I'm buying this, not for a convicted felon. And she knowingly did.
That was part of it.
Yes.
I didn't know that was part of it, but good.
Yes, and these were the weapons that would eventually be used in the murders and the hostage scheme. Where
the hell's Constance now? How's she feel?
Constance, after this was revealed, she was arrested because she was charged with making a false statement in connection with purchase of a gun.
That is a fucking felony.
Constance was convicted, and she did serve 16 months in prison. And she was ordered to pay upwards of $450,000 to the victims' families. There were 3 separate families she had to pay money to. She declared bankruptcy, so her insurance only shelled out $100,000 that was split 3 ways.
I mean, I'm surprised there was even that much.
Yeah, that's what happened with Constance.
Jesus, Constance.
Yeah. So Tracy Whitehead, during this time, she sought refuge from Palzinski with her boss at the grocery store that she worked at. Her name was Gloria. And Gloria gave her solace. She said, look, you can come stay with us for a couple days while your new apartment's getting ready. You can stay with me and my husband, George. And I believe Tracy also had a kid at the time, or kids at the time. So they also went with her.
Did she?
I believe so.
I didn't realize that.
Yeah.
Okay.
She went to go stay with Gloria and George. And on March 7th, which is a Tuesday, Palzinski located her. He entered the Schenck residence and shot and killed Gloria and George in front of her and her kids, and kidnapped Whitehead from the Schenck's apartment, pulling her out by her hair.
And this is in Dundalk? Is that where we are? Do you know?
Yes, I do believe.
Okay. Thought so.
A neighbor overheard the commotion. His name was David Myers. He was 42 at the time. And he saw Whitehead struggling to free herself from Palzinski outside of the apartment complex. He went out there to try and help her, and that's when Palzinski shot him dead.
Right.
And Mr. Myers died in the arms of his fiancée, Terry Conroy, and the couple were planning on getting married in May of that year, so 2 months later.
Oh, my God. That's horrible.
I know. Speaking of marriage, Tracy Whitehead later told authorities he proposed to her, adding that after he kidnapped her initially, brought her to the woods, he put a ring on her finger. She said, he put a ring on my finger. He said he knew it wasn't good timing and it ain't never going to happen, but he wanted to ask me anyway. And I said yes. And I cried about it.
Of course she said yes. It's
Yeah.
the only way to stay alive. Good for her.
Yes.
Good for her.
Day, which is Wednesday.
I know it's not the right time, babe. I know it's a little hectic right now, but you know, you want to.
Well, he said, I know this isn't going to end well, so this is the only time to do it.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I guess he sort of knew what was going to happen.
Pretty much. The following day, which was a Wednesday, Palzinski, with Tracy in tow, shot and killed 36-year-old Jennifer Lynn McDonald to steal her car. He was actually unsuccessful for some reason.
Because he's an idiot.
Yeah. Jennifer Lynn McDonald, who was Jamaican native, had a 1-year-old daughter, and she was pregnant at the time. And she was on her way to church with her husband, who was in the car.
Stop.
During the carjacking, he shot at other passing cars, and a bullet grazed a car, shot into a car, and grazed a 2-year-old named Gregory Sims. But he survived. He survived.
Well, yeah, it was just, but still.
But still. God, yeah.
Imagine being that kid's mother. Jesus.
I know. Palzinski ended up carjacking an 81-year-old woman, and she was not harmed. But he was able to steal her car, and he and Tracy drove out onto Pulaski Highway to the El Rich Motel.
Oh, is that one of the no-tell motels?
Perhaps.
Out on Pulaski Highway? Yeah.
Perhaps one. Palzinski saw McDonald's death and the carjacking reporting on the news in the motel. And he realized, oh shit, my guns were left in the vehicle that he had just stolen. So he was like, Tracy, I'm taking you outside. We have to go get my guns. So when they left the motel door, Tracy saw a police car that was kind of parked in that general area. So she said, I knew he didn't have the weapons because they were in the car. So this was my only time. So she made a break for it and ran towards the car. And she survived. He ended up ditching her and ran out into the woods. And that's when he went on the lam. That's when the manhunt started.
Right. Oof. I'm getting chills. I'm having memories. I remember. I'm on Pulaski Highway. I feel like it's raining because whenever I'm on Pulaski Highway, it's raining. Yeah. And I'm picturing one of those disgusting no-tell motels that they're famous for.
He ended up, I think, catching a train down to Virginia. So he left the state of Maryland.
I didn't realize that happened. Okay.
So Friday, March 10th, 2000, police say that Palzinski broke into a Virginia home near the train tracks. And he ended up stealing more guns and a van. He took that van in an attempt to drive up to Maryland.
Why? Why do you want to go
back? Because he wanted to make Tracy pay.
Fucking idiot.
The van ran out of gas. He was somewhere around Woodford, Virginia. And he found a man named William Terrell, who was 53. And he brandished his gun at him, and he said, you need to drive me up to Baltimore. And he initially refused, and he pointed
like,
a gun
hey, buddy,
at his
you
head.
can have the car. Yeah. Why don't you just take the car? I don't need to be there.
But unfortunately, Mr. Terrell, was carjacked and forced to drive him up there. Palzinski did say that he would promise not to kill him once they got up to Baltimore, which...
Well, it doesn't sound like he wanted to kill men. It sounded like he wanted to kill teenage girls.
Fair. Sorry. That is fair.
Sorry.
Yeah. So Mr. Terrell did drive him up to Baltimore County, back up from Virginia. That is where Palzinski forced Mr. Terrell to drive to the White Marsh Target.
Stop this!
The Target store in White Marsh.
Where you used to work?
Yes, where I used to work.
All right, now I'm picturing you. You're in your little red polo, and I'm coming in when you're working, and I want some popcorn, a hot dog, and a soda, because you worked at the little concession stand.
He went to that Target store, and he went to the Dick's Sporting Goods store in that shopping center. Terrell was forced to buy camping gear and kind of like survivalist equipment for Palzinski. So he did let him go after that, after he bought him those items, and the manhunt continued. And that's when a lot of the speculation started going around town. I swear I just saw him running through my backyard. I swear I could see him running through the woods. Those were happening left and right. And residents were captivated. They were terrified about what the fuck was going on. So they started arming themselves with baseball bats and loaded guns and sleeping with knives. He was known to be an outdoorsman, and he had survival equipment because Mr. Terrell bought him those things. Nowhere was safe for him, for being
just
to
in
see
the
him.
outback of Dundalk.
Yes. Yes.
Just hiding.
Absolutely is. So shit, I think that was like that Saturday. And come Friday, March 17th, this was after Baltimore police. This is after FBI started putting up barricades throughout the city, doing checks, doing like vehicle checks. They had Tracy in a secure location, so they knew it was either going to be her or her family. So they were already, as far as I know, they were already at the family's house in Dundalk where the hostage took place.
Oh my God.
But Palzinski somehow broke through those police barriers that were surrounding the Dundalk home of Tracy's mother, Lynn, Lynn's boyfriend, Andy, and their 12-year-old son, Bradley. And apparently, young Bradley let Palzinski into the house, not knowing the danger that he posed. And that's how he was able to get in. Come on, kid. He was our age.
My kid.
He was 12.
Oh, God, that's right. He was our age.
Yes, he was. So Bradley let him in, and this is what started the 97-hour standoff and hostage situation.
Okay. Just give, you're going to get there in a minute. I'm excited. I've got opinions, and I've got thoughts about what happens.
We are unloading it all.
Okay.
So that happened on Friday. The standoff was continuing. Here we are on Sunday, March 19th. This was after days of negotiations and requests from Palzinski wanting to talk to Tracy. The police did not comply with his request for Tracy because they figured, A, this is the only thing that he was asking for, and B, if they were to acquiesce, there's no telling that he wasn't just going to kill Lynn while he was on the phone with her.
Of course.
So the police were like, no, we're not. No, Joe, we're not going to do that to you. No, Joe.
No, hon, you're not going in. Sorry.
So throughout this whole time, this stretch of Dundalk where this siege was taking place, police began to ferry out some residents 2 at a time in armored police vehicles to their safety. They were made to shelter in a nearby elementary school. They were not allowed to stay in their houses, of course.
I do remember that. I remember that part on the news. I remember people they were interviewing people from that school.
Interviewing people?
I hate you.
No, it's coming out because we're talking.
I know.
Side note, as they were ferrying out the residents in that neighborhood, many residents had pets. Baltimore police, those fun-loving bunches.
Oh, God. I forgot
They took up shop
this.
in a house nearby that had a barking dog. So the tactical unit, pop that dog, shot it dead.
I forgot about that. That's absolutely right.
Monday, March 20th.
God.
More shots were heard coming from the house.
Whose side are we on?
That's the question du jour.
Who are we
rooting for here?
I'm on Tracy's side.
Yeah, that's conceivably the only side.
I guess.
So here we are Monday. More shots are heard, including shots fired that were inside of the home, which Palzinski told the hostage negotiators that he had shot one of the hostages, which later turned out to not be true at all.
I was going to say, I didn't think any of them got shot.
No. Yeah.
Okay.
Come Tuesday, March 21st, they talked to Palzinski until 9:45 p.m. And at about 10:20 p.m., Lynn and Andy, the adults in the hostage situation, decided to take things into their own hands. Yeah. They laced a glass of iced tea with Xanax. And they gave it to Palzinski, which made him fall asleep.
Yes, they did.
And this is when Andy McCord fled out the front window alone. And although he made a lot of noise in his panicked escape, Palzinski did not wake up. He was sleeping in the living room, by the way, on the couch.
Guess who else didn't wake up? You'll get to it.
We'll get to it. Lynn also escaped out the window, the living room window, after her boyfriend did.
Who's left?
Oh, I think it was the 12-year-old kid.
The 12-year-old kid that they left in the house. Both of them.
They left him sleeping on the kitchen floor. And they made a calculated risk.
They did. They just
sure
were
did.
fuck you.
They justified it. They
what good is he if we're dead?
They justified it. They said, look, like we made a risk because
No, I know.
we were not
It's
sure with trying to wake up this 12-year-old kid that he wasn't going to, cause disturbances, woozy, like, where are we? Why are we doing this? Blah, 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 blah. Because he was sleeping in the living room. So they left him there.
Objectively, I can understand. However, having been a 12-year-old in Baltimore at the time, I was a little offended.
A little bit. I'm even more offended once I realized what happened afterwards. Very shortly after the two adults escaped from the living room window, they were like, wakey. Cops, it's your time to shine. We left our kids in there. So the cops were like, shoot it. So they busted through the door. 12-year-old kids still sleeping in the kitchen. It's all being live cast on TV, mind you. The police ran through the door, and
I can picture it.
According to Baltimore police, Joe was sleeping on the couch, and he was sleeping either on top of or his rifle was on his stomach as he was sleeping. But either way, the cops claimed that he did reach for his gun to shoot them, which they opened fire first, shooting 27 bullets into Joseph Palzinski. Again, while that 12-year-old kid was in the kitchen from the living room.
Like, I mean...
Do you want to talk about trauma and being traumatized?
Yes! I'm thinking about the 12-year-old who got left behind.
Absolutely, 100%, yes.
I guarantee you, if he has any sense, he never let anyone live that down.
No, ma'am, Pam, yes. An autopsy after Palzinski was riddled with bullets found that he had no traces of drugs or alcohol other than the Xanax in his system. And it's believed that Tracy is still living in Maryland, hopefully. And that is a big hopefully with a capital H. She did not.
She didn't get out of Dundalk?
No. I looked her up on Facebook. She's still, she's still living there. Hopefully she's found some sort of peace from this throughout this ordeal. So, shit.
Wow.
That is Joe Palzinski.
I had no idea.
Our alma mater. The White Marsh Target where I used to work.
Right? This is just like, let's touch all of
where my family
where
lived.
your family's from.
This hit way closer to home than I ever imagined when I pulled it up.
I knew it happened 20 minutes away, but I had no idea. It was literally he went to our high school.
So that's the story of Joseph Palzinski. Joby Palzinski, man. A spree killer, a manhunt enthusiast, a barricader in chief.
He did it twice. Okay.
Yes.
So this week, me, I'm Spoopy.
Yes.
So this is sort of two-parter. I wanted to do a story of something I was sort of mildly obsessed with a few years ago, but it's not enough for a whole story.
Okay.
So then I kind of segued into something else. And I'm going to go over the main topic, and then I'm going to bring you in to the funny, ridiculous shit that brought me here.
Nice. All right. Okay. I am so here for it.
All right. So picture it. In 2009, a year after Li Chaolong died of leukemia in China's central Henan province, his mother finally found a bride for him from the same village, who was only hours away from dying of kidney failure herself. The bride passed away shortly after, and the very next day, their families had a wedding/funeral for the couple, who were both dead and had never met, and they were buried together in his family's grave. The groom's family was thrilled because the family elders up until this point had forbade his mother from burying him because he was unmarried. If they did so, it would bring bad luck to his grandmother, who was still alive, had he been allowed to be buried in the family grave. Meanwhile, the bride's parents were thrilled because if the marriage had not been arranged for their daughter, as a woman, she would have never been able to have been formally buried anywhere at all. The families were participating in the ancient Chinese tradition of Minghuan, or ghost marriage.
Ooh, okay.
Do you know anything about her?
No, ma'am.
All right. Well, let's take a little journey.
But it's two of my favorite things put together.
Ghost weddings.
Ghosts and weddings.
Nice. Well, Kevin, maybe it's not too late to change your wedding to
The
a
whole
ghost
theme? Oh, shit, yeah.
You still got time.
I do. I have a couple months.
Believers in the custom, which has been practiced for 3,000 years approximately, say it ensures the unmarried dead are not alone in the afterlife. Originally, the weddings were strictly for the dead, a ritual conducted by the living that would wed two single deceased people.
Okay.
Though outlawed for hundreds of years, it has been continually practiced in parts of rural China, usually in the northern provinces, through the present day. It happens all the time still. In traditional Chinese culture, it was shameful to be the parents of an unwed daughter, and unmarried girls were often shunned from society, so their parents would arrange a minghun, which is spelled Minghun, which I Googled how to say it, and I'm sorry if it's wrong. Minghun.
Sounds good to me, and I'm an expert,
white.
yes.
So they would arrange a ghost marriage to a deceased man to alleviate their shame of their stupid unmarried daughter. I can't imagine the shame I would be bringing upon my family had I lived in a different country and for so many reasons.
Like, I'm actively bringing shame now.
That's not true.
That is not true.
That's not true. Once I went to law school, I was absolved.
That is true.
Just kidding. My family likes me fine.
Allegedly.
Kevin, watch it. Sometimes it was arranged with a matchmaker. It was arranged just between the families on their own or with a feng shui master, which I still can't work out. I don't know how they got involved.
Yeah.
But in the case where like a woman whose fiance died, a bride could choose to still go through with the wedding, in which the groom was represented by a white cockerel, aka a white chicken.
What did you call me?
A cockerel.
Called me a white cock?
Well,
I don't appreciate that.
Am I wrong?
No.
Cousin is the season. So say it's 1,000 years ago and I'm a lady getting married to a dude and he, right, laugh, and he dies. My option is to then go through with the marriage, and the actual ceremony is me getting married to a chicken. But, you know,
there's no way to talk about your husband.
The problem is that some girls were hesitant because a ghost marriage required her to participate in the funeral ritual.
The rural juror.
However, some of the girls were hesitant because ghost marriage required her to participate in the funeral ritual, take a vow of celibacy, and immediately take up residence with his family.
Shacking on up.
I don't know why they were hesitant.
I don't know
why they're so hesitant. Because it's stupid.
Sounds like
also
a cushy gig for
Chinese, right? Also in Chinese custom dictates that a traditional, I'm not saying these are still a part of culture today, but traditionally younger brothers could not marry before elder brothers. So what's a bro to do when his older bro dies unmarried? A ghost marriage.
A ghost marriage.
So a ghost marriage for an older deceased brother may be arranged just prior to a younger brother's wedding to avoid incurring disfavor of the brother's ghost.
I would love to know who is shelling out these disfavors. That's what I would like to know.
It's the Confucian family values that...
Is that a reality show on VH1? It's like Hogan Knows Best, but with Confucius.
Yeah, basically. So, it's just like old, thousands of years old family tradition. So in that case, the ghost marriage allowed the family's lineage to carry on because the spouse becomes the, quote, social instrument for the family.
Like that.
The spouse, aka the woman, became the social instrument to enable the family to adopt. So I just want to pause here. She is now not adopting a child. His parents are adopting a grandchild.
Okay.
And I know that when I was researching it, that delineation was made. So I'm making it here.
Understood.
And so I don't know if that child who's adopted, I don't know if they have any relation to the woman who got married, because they're referred to as the adopted grandchild, not the adopted child. So it very well may be, but because she's a woman and her husband is deceased, I don't know if that means that she just has no part in it, but it's described as the parent's grandson.
Okay.
And as that person, his duties were to make ancestral offerings on his birth and death dates, and he was entitled to inherit from his foster father's share of the family estate. Because heaven forbid his wife be able to get the family estate.
Heaven forbid, indeed.
Idiot.
You need a dick to have some common sense.
You need a D-Y-I-C-K.
Yes.
According to history professor Ping Yao, different forms of ghost marriages are arranged in different provinces in China. So ghost weddings are most common in the northern provinces, as I said, where there's coal mining industries are really big. So a lot of women have left those areas. They migrated out of those areas. And the men who are left work in this highly dangerous job, dealing with coal mining. So please forgive me, in the Shaanxi, spelled Shaanxi province, afterlife marriages emphasize matching the deceased. So two deceased people getting married, the idea is that they, as deceased people, will now have a happy afterlife because they are not losers and single.
Right.
And then there's the Shaanxi, which is spelled the same way, but with only one A. So Shanxi province. The marriages are arranged so that deceased bachelors can be buried in their family cemetery. So deceased men are married to living women. And then in the Hebei, spelled Hebi province, Hebei province, children actually marry their parents after death. So they arrange marriages for parents after they die. So folklore expert. Oh,
you mean like they marry off their parents? Because
yes.
At first I thought you said the children marry their parents, and I was like, what?
No, I may have said that. No. Nothing weird like that. Instead of parents marrying for children, children are marrying off their parents.
Yes. Cool.
Okay. And then folklore expert Huang Jinchun from Shanghai University told Chinese media in early 2017 that practitioners find the tradition very normal and are surprised at the surprise of other people. No one tries to hide the practice or not to talk about it. People are surprised that this is a subject that can be researched because it just seems so commonplace. He even said that taxi drivers all had their own firsthand experience in arranging such marriages or have witnessed a ghost marriage wedding being held by neighbors or friends. So it's just in certain rural parts of China, this is very, very common.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
And in a ghost marriage ceremony, many of the same typical marriage rites are observed. However, since one or more of the parties are dead, they're represented most often by effigies made in paper, bamboo, or cloth. The bride and groom may be constructed of paper, or like a papier-mâché bust is made sometimes. The bride was always treated as though she was alive and participating in the proceedings. One observable difference in a ghost marriage and a regular marriage is the ancestral tablet of the deceased is placed inside the effigy so that the bride's dummy is animated with the ghost that's to be married and then placed with the groom's family tablets at the end of the festivities. And the tablets, I think we've seen them like in movies and stuff. They kind of look like metal long bookmarks and they have like writing on them.
Yeah.
And they're usually just kept, like all of the tablets of the family of the ancestry are kept together. Do you want to hear part of the ceremony?
I absolutely do.
So whoever is officiating, they say, okay, so in this it says so-and-so, and that's just to refer to some person, I guess. So it says, so-and-so, I hereby inform you. You died at a young age and thus did not realize the great principle of marriage.
That's not her fault. She died.
You slept alone in the dark world and lack the intimacy of a man and a woman. Just as living people long for companionship, the dead fear loneliness as well. Unexpectedly, so-and-so's family had a daughter who just passed away like an autumn leaf. We sent a betrothal for you so your souls might meet. We selected this auspicious day for the rite of your union. We set out an offering next to your shrine tablet furnished with all kinds of food. Please send your spirit down to the banquet and eat the meal. That's the prayer.
Okay.
Did you know that you're dead? And did you know that you lack intimacy in your dark world of sleep?
In death and in life. And we have to clean up the mess that you made.
Right. However, in current times, there's a dark trend associated with Minghuan because it's very lucrative business. And there are huge numbers of young, unmarried men working in coal mining where fatalities are high, and China is currently struggling with a gender imbalance problem.
Oh, yes.
By the end of 2017, there were 32 million more women than there were men. So, in response to that, there is a black market of female corpses that has appeared in provinces of Shandong, Shaanxi, and Shaanxi. A hospital employee was quoted in Chinese media as saying, once the news of a young girl dying spreads, not that she has died, but that she is dying, once that news spreads, tens of families who have lost their sons rush
tens of families.
I mean, that's what it said. It's a quote.
I know, and
I feel like it could have been said better.
Yeah. I just think of Karen Walker, where she talks about Jack having fives of tens of fans.
But yeah, tens of families would rush the hospital to start an auction war. Quote, usually when the auction is over and the girl's family promises to deliver her body to the winning parents, the girl is still alive.
That is cold. What if she was like conventionally unattractive and people are like,
oh, it does not matter.
That's what I mean. They didn't want her in life, but they sure as hell want her dead.
Even when the living are married, that is not at all an issue because there is such an imbalance. It does not matter what the woman looks like, what her intelligence is. It doesn't matter as long as she can make babies. So in 2015, it was reported that 14 female corpses were stolen in one village in Shaanxi. Villagers said tomb raiders stole the bodies to make money. A man arrested in Inner Mongolia told police officers that he murdered a woman so he could make money by selling her body to a family looking for a ghost bride. In 2016, police in northwest China charged a man with murdering 2 women with mental disabilities and sold each body for $8,300 for ghost marriages. 3 men were detained after the body of one of the women was found in their vehicle by traffic police. The investigation led them to uncover that the man allegedly promised the women he would find them grooms, instead killed them so he could sell their corpses. So he didn't really lie, I guess.
I guess not. Doesn't sound like that.
Even corpses of married elderly women have become targets for the illegal trade. In 2019, some graves in the Henan province resorted to putting CCTV cameras on graves and putting bodies in concrete coffins. 30 years ago, it reportedly costs about $1,000 to buy a corpse and host a ghost wedding. A matchmaker who had been in business since the 1990s told Chinese media. By 2016, the matchmaker said that you can't buy a single bone for less than like 31 grand. So 2018, there were at least 12 prominent murder cases related to ghost marriages and more cases of kidnapping and grave robberies. It's important to note, as of 2018 anyway, which was the article I was reading was written in 2018. As of 2018, there's no regulation that specifically outlaws ghost marriages or the selling or buying of corpses in China. China doesn't get to have all the fun. There's notably a few other countries. France, posthumous marriage in France is legal, but must be approved by several civil several civil servants.
Say that
and the
3 times fast.
I can't even say it. And the family of the deceased. It says that posthumous marriage for civilians originated in the 1950s when a dam broke and killed 400 people, including a man named Andre Capara, who was engaged to Irene Jodar, who pleaded with French President Charles de Gaulle. I can't. To let her go along with her marriage plans, even though her fiancé had died. She had support from the media, and within months, she was allowed to marry her deceased fiancé. So that's how that started, and you can do it to this day in France. South Africa, so I wrote, this is not a cultural phenomenon, but just a fucked up story. In 2004, a man in South Africa shot his fiancée and then himself during an argument. So they both died. The two were later married because the families and friends of the couple wanted to remember them as a happy couple and marry their families together. And because in African culture, death is instead thought of as a separation of body and soul, they allowed it. What were her parents?
I have questions.
Thinking?
Yeah.
I have so many questions.
Were they just wanting to overlook the murder of their daughter, or?
I don't know what the benefit was, because unless they believed that this was going to help them in the afterlife, it doesn't say that, but there's not a lot of information about it.
Sure.
But I'd be pissed if I was her.
Yeah.
A little bit. I mean, that's really it. I mean, mostly it was talked about how, the weddings are for the living. They're to ease, it's part of like the bereavement process for families. It's more so something like that. But it's really picked up in recent years, and not just in China, in Taiwan, Singapore, a lot of Asian countries, there's been a significant uptick, and they only know because it's a result of women now being murdered, being kidnapped, being whatever.
Wow.
Notice that I didn't find any stories of men being murdered so women could marry them. But
women are just so...
I'm so scared about what you're going to say.
No, they are so exploited on this planet. It is in so many unique ways that men will never experience.
I guess it could be confusing to hear about.
It's confusing and it's creepy.
It's very creepy. So the story that really brought me to this, the story I wanted to do that there's just not about. Okay, a few years ago, I became obsessed with this person. Her name was Amanda Sparrow Large Teague from Ireland. She married the ghost of Jack Robert Teague, who she claimed was the real-life Captain Jack Sparrow. She was working as a medium and a Jack Sparrow impersonator when the spirit come through. Yes, and she didn't
Jack
believe
Sparrow.
it because she's like, he's not even a real person. So she thought a different ghost was pranking her. Not that it wasn't real, that she was being pranked by a different ghost. She found out that Jack Robert Teague was a real person. He was executed in 1752 because he was a prolific pirate. And she said, I communicated regularly with Jack. He was easy to communicate with, and I enjoyed his company. In fact, after a while, I just opened myself up to allowing him to come and go in my life whenever
Opened
he
yourself
pleased.
up?
I liked having him around.
Come and go?
Oh, no. She has been quoted as saying, ghost sex is just as fulfilling as human sex. She fell in love and wrote a book called A Time You Will Remember, a real book that you can buy on Amazon. A fictionalized version of her relationship, but sadly it didn't last.
Oh.
2018, she got divorced
Ghost
because
divorce.
his spirit was just he wasn't who he said he would be, and it drained her completely, and she'll never recover.
Wow. Poor that lady.
That's the story I wanted to do. They're just... Poor Amanda, no longer Sparrow.
So you gave me ghost weddings and ghost divorce.
Yes, I did.
You went full circle.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Damn.
And apparently a ghost divorce isn't easy because once you let somebody in like that, it takes a while to be able to keep them out.
I could only imagine. Miss, that was a fantastic story.
Thank you. Kevin, that was an incredible story from you. I learned so much of a story that I thought I knew about.
I've been sitting on that story for a couple weeks once I realized I wanted to do it. And I was like, oh my God, Miss is going to flip when I found out that they went to our high school.
I can't get over it.
Look at us. Episode 12. We're talking about ghosts. We're talking about ghost marriage, ghost divorce. We're talking about murder sprees. We're talking about manhunts. We're talking about targets that we used to work at. I'm glad that we got to walk down memory lane a little bit today.
Yeah, no, it's a good one. And listen, Boo, in the afterlife, if we're both unmarried.
Yes.
Let's do it.
Yes.
Let's do it.
So, where can they find us, Miss?
They can find us on Instagram at Creepy Inquiries Pod. You can send us an email, creepyinquiriespod@gmail.com.
Yup.
Our website also you can visit is creepyinquiriespod.com. And we have Facebook. That's Creepy Inquiries.
Mm-hmm.
If you like what we're doing, it is a little rate or review or both, but I'm having a lot of fun.
Yes,
I'm glad you're here to be with us.
I am so glad you guys are here, and we are so happy that you are listening. We cannot wait to release next week's episode as well. New episodes every Wednesday. And what we say at the end of every episode, goodbye.